So in this video, I want to talk about 5 passive income businesses that you can start. So the first one is obviously my favorite is real estate investing. So I like real estate investing obviously because of the passive income that you can get through rental income. Another pro would be appreciation. So appreciation is when the value of the property actually goes up in value. Some other benefits would be tax write-offs. And one of the main benefits of real estate would be leverage. So leverage in a sense where you can buy a property, for example, if it's worth $1 million. Some people actually think you need $1 million to buy that property. No, you can actually go to the bank and the bank will actually loan you 800 grand, which then you only put down 200 to buy this property. So some of the cons for real estate investing would be you need money. So it doesn't matter if it's your money or somebody else's money, investors' money, partners' money, family and friends' money, you need money. You can't buy real estate without money. So that's one con. And also when you acquire a building, how you make money is you're technically providing housing. So you're dealing with tenants, which for the most part, it's usually works out really well, but there are some tenants that can give you problems. Sometimes they're called professional tenants, and this can be a very big nightmare for some new landlords because in some provinces in Canada, for example, Ontario, it's very tenant friendly and there are rules and regulations within the province that landlords have to abide, that landlords have to follow, which they can't just kick out a tenant if they don't pay. They have to go through a system, a legal system to properly evict them. So this sometimes leaves landlords, going through this process for 6 to 8 months without getting paid. And if you were counting on that income for survival, that's going to be a problem because it's going to take time for you to evict that tenant and then also get a new tenant in that property. So that's probably one of the biggest cons when it comes to real estate, dealing with the tenants. And then obviously another con is because you're dealing with a lot of money, and if you can't pay those obligations, the debt, mortgages, you could go bankrupt. The second one would be short-term rentals, for example, like Airbnb. So I have experience in this business as well. I have some Airbnbs. One of the reasons why I really like them is they produce a lot of income, a lot of cash flow, especially in Canada and in some cities. Compared to real estate, you have more control. So because it's more of a short-term rental, the customer doesn't have as much rights. So they're technically not classified as a tenant. With short-term rentals, you also have the ability to leverage depending on how you structure it. For example, if you buy a home, if you buy a condo with, a mortgage and you own that place and then you put it up for short term, you obviously can leverage. Another option is if you don't want to buy, you can lease an apartment or a house. This option gives you ability to obviously not put down a substantial down payment. With this option though, you obviously have to be very transparent with the landlord that your intentions are to rent it out short term. Some of the cons compared to investing in real estate or just in general would be short-term rentals does take a lot more work up front. Think of it like owning or running a hotel. You constantly have customers coming in and out. You have to clean the rooms, everything, right? You have to get it ready for each customer. If that's once a week, if that's every 2-3 days. So there's more work needed compared to if you're just renting a place per month, per year. So dealing with guests is another thing. It's just because they're renting out your place short term, they might have requests or they might be reaching out to you for things like, hey, what do you do in the city? Or I need help how to turn on the TV, how to work all the amenities, stuff like that. Think of it like this. When you stay at a hotel and you don't know how to operate something, what is your first reaction? To call and ask customer service or the front desk, right? So you're gonna be like that person that's helping the guest. So they'll need to have access to you or somebody basically 24 hours a day. And the other thing, depending on what kind of platform you're using, for example, Airbnb, you also have to understand that Airbnb doesn't like you contacting the customer outside the platform. So asking for their email number is not something that Airbnb likes because it's technically their customer, not yours. So if you build a customer base outside of Airbnb and you have your own website and all that stuff, it's obviously a lot better in a sense where you can control the customer. But if you use these platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, all that other stuff, the customers are technically the platforms, not yours. So I would consider that to be another con. So the third passive income business would be laundromats. I like laundromats just because, one, I have them in all my buildings, and it's an easy business where I also have some partnerships with third-party companies, which they come to me, they do all the work, and they manage the money, and we do some kind of profit split. So if you are running that business, it's pretty easy just because, one, you could technically go to maybe a big landlord and do some kind of profit split for all their locations, because once you have the laundry units in each of these buildings, it wouldn't really need a lot of time or work to operate. And let's just say you had your own building, right? Like a laundromat, and people go there, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a multifamily building. It can be a standalone. Once everything's set up, it really doesn't require a lot of work to operate. Another huge pro would be the fact that most people need to wash their clothes every week, sometimes a couple times a week. So it's a pretty big need. So if there are apartment buildings around an area where some of those apartment buildings don't offer that service, and some of those people don't have laundry units, they're searching for that, right? They're searching for laundry facilities where they can wash their clothes. Another pro would be that this business isn't so expensive to start. You do need obviously money to start, but it's not as expensive. For example, investing in a multifamily, building that's, probably $1 million. If you need 20% down, you might need anywhere from 150 to 200 grand just to purchase this building. For a laundromat, it would require a lot less money to start the business. But I think some of the cons would be the overhead costs in terms of maintenance, where I personally think a con would be collecting the money if it's coins. I know in a lot of my buildings, they have a card system, which I think works great because the tenants are always there. But I don't know how well that would work in a standalone building where some of those people might be, in the city, in town for a short period of time, and they don't like the convenience to get a card and set all that up. But when you have a coin system, you obviously need somebody to collect the coins, and then you open up some risk to having people break in and stealing the coins. Because I know when I started in real estate, I've had that problem where tenants, they break into laundry machines to steal like $20, $30, but they still do, right? So that's a con. So the fourth one would be online business. And when I mean online business, more down the Shopify route. So opening up a Shopify store would be very easy. It's not as complicated to start. When it comes to money, you don't really need a lot of money to start up your store, get your store in like running and all that stuff. And I think one of the biggest pros about Shopify is if you have an already established brand, if you have an already, very loyal following base, this would definitely help your brand in terms of finding a relatable product or service to sell to your loyal followers, right? A lot of people do this. You see a lot of influencers do this. So that would be a very big pro. So some Shopify stores would be drop shipping. And what drop shipping is, just to make it simple, somebody buys something on your store, you buy it then from another store, for example, Alibaba, and they send the product to the customer directly. But the difference is, for customer buys from your store, for example, $50, and you buy from this other store, Alibaba, for like $20, and you make that difference. If you use this option, this makes the process a little easier, where you don't have to hold the product, you don't have to outsource the product and all that stuff. So there's less work on your end. I think the con would be where if it's not a drop shipping model, you would have to house the product, source the product, and then, package the product and ship the product, which this would be a lot of work, especially if you're scaling, right? So imagine if you have hundreds of orders, you would obviously need to hire a team. Another con would be low profit margins. You could easily just Google the profit margins. These tend to have anywhere from, 10 to 20% profit margins. So volume is very important. You obviously need to do a lot to actually make a lot. Another con would be the competition. Because it has the kind of a low entry to barrier, meaning it doesn't take a lot to start this business. There is a lot of competition. There's a lot of people doing it. So if your business is doing well and you have a competitor seeing that, they could just mimic your page and mimic your business and kind of steal some of your profits. And I would say the last one for the passive income business would be dividend paying stocks. So I have a bunch of dividend paying stocks. I wouldn't say stocks just in general, because you have to understand when it comes to just to stocks, yes, your stock price can increase, but you're technically not making passive income. The only way you're going to make money off on that is by selling it, right? So I'm primarily talking about something that makes you money, with little to none of your active time or you putting a lot of work into that business. So dividend paying stocks is fairly easy to invest. You don't need to be an expert, but it's definitely recommended to have some knowledge. It definitely doesn't require a lot of money to start. Investing in dividend paying stocks is relatively safe. Again, you got to do the research and you got to obviously make sure the company you're investing in has a track record and it's been around for a long time, and it's relatively safe. But some of the cons would be in this realm of dividend paying stocks. Typically, you're going to see returns from 1%, 2%, maybe up to 6 or 8%, right? And when you're dealing with low percentages like that, you typically need a substantial amount of money to make a decent amount of money, right? Like you're not going to make a lot of money with like $1,000, right? You can make a decent amount of money per year with 100 grand, right? Or maybe 200 grand, but around 5 to 6% is not going to make you a lot of money if you don't have anything more than 100,000. So I would consider that a con. And like I said before, something like this, you do need research. You do need to understand what you're doing. This is not something you can just jump in and just not know what you're doing. It's not like there's not a huge risk that you lose everything, but something like this, it's recommended that you understand what you're doing and you understand what you're investing in. And the last one would be when you're investing in dividend paying stocks, these are companies that you really have very little control over what happens, right? When you're starting your business, when you start your own business, for example, like real estate, like an online store, Shopify store, or a laundromat, you personally have control over what happens. You technically have little control, if any control at all, right? So that's the other thing. If you're okay with that, then this is something for you. If you're not okay with that, then I would probably venture off into something else. And I think when it comes to passive income, it's something that I think everyone should look into, because you have to understand, if you're working a 9-to-5 job, the idea is to put some money aside or look into ways you can create multiple sources of income. Because when you rely just on your job, you might be there for 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to realize you're going to need something more to retire on, because just relying on one source of income is not going to give you that financial freedom or that financial independence that you're going to be looking for long term.